Her name is Latoya Amons. She's a resident of a city about 30 miles south and east of Chicago in Gary, Indiana. And a few weeks ago, Latoya made national headlines for some kind of news that you and I would not want to be famous. It was her desire to tell the truth, and she has been ridiculed and scorned. After moving into the Gary home that she resided in November of 2011, she noticed otherworldly activity taking place in her home, threatening her family. This is a true story. You can watch the clips on CNN of Latoya telling the news reporters about how demons entered her home and began to terrorize her family. Well, demons, spirit possessions, haunted houses. This isn't the typical purview of the Department of Child Services. But when this mother reported what was going on in her home and her children head-butting their grandparents, acting out in public, all of a sudden the Department of Child Services got involved. Dr. Jeffrey Anyuike, the family physician, evaluated Amons and her 3 children, and he said never before in his professional experience had he ever witnessed anything on this level. So they bring the children to the local hospital. And according to one of the persons in the local hospital, as they are sitting there in the room, one of the sons begins to walk up the wall backwards, flips over, and lands on his feet. Let's just say that the personnel who were evaluating the young people, once they saw that, they became believers in what they would have otherwise thought was not real. I only bring it up today because sometimes recent activity of what has happened in the scriptures is what it takes for you and I to recall that moments like this are really real. That what we read in the text is really true. That demons are real. And if you don't believe in the devil or in demons, that might be prime indication that he's in control of you. I want today to tell you that this story is real. This kind of activity is still taking place in our world today. When we get to Mark chapter 5, it reads like a Stephen King novel with a tinge of reality. This is no fiction thriller. This is a narrative of something that actually happened, a circumstance in the life of a real human being. He was tormented by the devil. Just before in Mark chapter 4, Jesus and his disciples have crossed the Sea of Galilee. It was no normal passage of the Sea of Galilee. There was a fierce gale of wind that broke out upon them, and these nautical experts, some of them, were fearful for their lives to the point where they wake Jesus up and ask him, "Do you care?" Jesus gets up, sleepy, groggy, walks to the side of the boat, speaks to the wind, talks to the water, and the water lays down on the bosom of his gentle command. The disciples look at him and they ask what you would ask: who is this that even the wind and the water obey him? They get through this storm and they pull up on the western side of the Sea of Galilee and they walk into the Gerasene territory, when all of a sudden, as they step out of one storm, they walk into another. This storm is the definition, the darkest definition of human defeat. A man possessed by an army of demons. Whereas the disciples had just witnessed Jesus' power over nature, now they are about to witness his power over evil and spiritual wickedness in living color. This, my brothers, in Mark chapter 5, is the intersection of terror and triumph. It is where the roads of grace and gloom intersect. This is where the terror of the enemy meets its own torment. It's an early date for destruction to meet its own demise. The demoniac meets Jesus.